Say my name. I am awake. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
Welcome back to Breaking Into Breaking Bad, Season 1, Episode 5, Gray Matter. So, Cabes, the title for this episode is pretty self-explanatory, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. Gray matter. Gray matter technologies. How about that?
Yeah, so we get a lot of background in this episode
Mhm.
about a part of Walt's history that I found very surprising. Like, I guess I always thought he was a high school chemistry teacher, and he just never really had ambitions for anything more than that. But turns out there's a really interesting history with this company that seems to have made it really big, but not with him. So,
Yeah, I liked kind of how the episode played out, where you just learn a little bit at a time. Where, as in, they're going to this birthday party, and then you find out that, oh, he was a college roommate, and that, oh, they actually started a company together, and oh, their literal names were the reason for the actual name of the company. And oh, by the way, this company blew up, and
yeah,
Walt is no longer there, but you don't know
yeah,
why.
right, right, right. Okay, well so that's the title of the episode, Gray Matter. So that's what it's
Yep.
about. But there are more interesting, or maybe not more interesting, but more fun things. And there's a lot going on in this episode. There's a lot going on in a lot of these episodes, but I gotta
Lot,
say,
lot to unpack on this one.
Cabes, I really like Badger.
Oh, Badger, man! The first time you see him, when he's just like if I'm a
Oh man, yeah,
business owner and I will need someone to hold a sign, I am hiring Badger each and every time.
every time, and twice on Sundays. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you have to. That guy was just all about the energy. I love it.
yeah,
Badger's great. Love Badger.
yeah, yeah. Definitely seems like a fun hang.
Got a crossbow. I mean, how could you not like the guy?
Why does he have the crossbow? Why does
Yeah,
he have like? What does he imagine he's going to use it for?
yeah. What does he say? He wants to hunt jalapenos or something like that. Like, oh man, I don't know what a jalapeno is. If that
Like
is
a
the
female
actual.
jalapeno?
Yeah, I guess you got to be prepared.
Yeah,
But I
right.
love it. Yeah, he comes packed with pseudo and crossbows. I love it.
Yeah. So pseudo. So I guess that's the stuff you use to make meth. Is that right?
Right. That's the stuff that's in cold medicine that is a main ingredient in meth. So I guess, I found out later that, like, from this episode, or from the show, that, like, you can't go buy bulk cold medicine for for this reason alone, because
Right.
people are like,
Right.
oh yeah, you're trying to make meth, so you're not gonna expect to be cold, have a cold that often.
Right. Right. So it took him a long time to build up the stash that he had. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so Badger, yeah. So we find out he and Jesse are friends, and he's the guy who's working at this place dressed up as what is he, a dollar sign or something?
Yeah, he's a dollar sign. And well, yeah, it's crazy. He's not just like flipping a sign around, but he's dressed completely like a mascot. It's great.
Yeah, and he's into it. He can do the helicopter. He's learning the
Yeah,
he's learning the
the
move.
helicopter. That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
well said.
Okay, so Badger, little comic relief. We like Badger. But it seems the main part of this episode really is our introduction to the background of Walt and the intervention that kind
Oh
of comes
yes.
out as a result of all that. So we're assuming that anyone listening to this podcast has watched the episode, so we don't need to go through the story. They've seen it, they know.
Yep.
But as we're talking about it, what are the important things to note about the background that we're learning? So Elliot, Elliot's kind of a nerd, right? And
Yeah.
wait, I think maybe the most important thing is somehow he ended up with the girl. How did he end up with the girl? Because the
Well,
last
see,
time we saw the girl, there was a romantic relationship between Walt
right.
and
So
her.
I don't know if it was just me, but I can't remember. Obviously, I've watched it several times, as everyone knows, but I can't remember if I picked up on the fact that the last episode that the girl he was talking to about the anatomy of what makes up a human body ended up being Gretchen. And it was, obviously, right? We all know that at this point. So we know that he had a prior history with this girl, with Gretchen, and that also Elliot was his business partner at one point. And Gretchen ends up with Elliot. So there's a lot we don't know, and you could see when we first see the introduction of Skylar and Walt with Elliot and Gretchen at the birthday party, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we got to go talk to some people. We'll be right back." You see Skylar kind of like focus on them a little bit, like, so there's like, oh, there's something there, it's like obviously everyone knows about the history there, but we're kind of just learning about this in
Right.
this episode. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here because you just
But
don't
Skylar
know
knows that that's an ex-girlfriend.
yeah. There's obviously that knowledge there, but like learning
Right.
that as we're watching this now, it's like, oh man, there it is.
Yeah, I liked how that in the show they highlighted how kind of out of place Walt and Skylar were among that crowd.
Yep.
So there's the there's the gift scene, right? The gift before Walt's is a Stratocaster electric guitar signed by Eric Clapton,
Yep.
and then his is a thing of ramen, right? But when they show up, they're immediately self-conscious of the way they're dressed. They know that they've overdressed, right? So she's wearing a floor-length dress, and he's wearing a
He's got the
double-breasted,
Yep.
a double-breasted blazer. Yeah, that doesn't fit him, right? It doesn't. It's too big for him, and so immediately we know they're kind of bourgeois, trying to look wealthier than they really are.
Right.
And the people who are actually super wealthy are all kind of casual.
I
And
know.
they're
And
all wearing.
I love Skylar's comment, like, are we really doing this? What is he, 9 years old? Or
Oh,
8
when
years
they're opening
old?
the presents. Yeah.
Opening the presents, and they're doing one at a time, and there's all these adults around. It's like, who does that?
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
that
what's
was
going
really
on?
weird. Super weird. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I guess you get the sense that guys like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, techie kind of people, are weird. They don't dress formal. They always kind of
Yeah.
wear a t-shirt and whatever that weird t-shirt
Right.
sweater combo thing
Yeah.
is they got going
Khaki
on.
and stuff. Yep.
Right. But they're a little bit socially awkward, but they're genius,
Mhm.
right? They're operating on another level. But that's the kind of people who are all there.
Right.
And then we get this, and then you get this, we gradually learn, right, that Walt could have been part of that crowd, right?
Right. In the conversation with the other people, he recognizes someone, probably a colleague or a college buddy, and they're all
Mm-hmm.
trying, they're just talking shop, and he goes way into shop, and you could tell they don't even know they
Oh,
they
when
don't
the
even know what
guy
he's talking
says this
about.
is the white and gray matter, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing, because then you're like, oh, okay, so we're learning about gray matter, and we're learning now
Mm-hmm.
that the founders of this were actually Elliot and Walter. And you're
Right.
like, oh, gotcha. So
Right.
like,
So what happened to Walt? I mean, that's the big question you're left with, is like,
that's
wait,
the
what the
biggest
hell, Walt?
question.
Why did you not?
Yes.
What happened to you, man? Did you get kicked out? What happened? And then I think a pretty telling moment is when he says, well, I went into education, and the guy says, oh, great.
Yep.
Like, what university? Silence.
Nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
complete insecurity, which is exactly what you'd expect from a kind of bourgeois person who's trying to come off like they're wealthier than they are, that's in a
Yes.
higher circle. It's super social, awkward. He acts funny the whole time. He's got a complete face on, a persona on the
Yes.
whole time
Yes.
with all those people, pretending that he's like, I mean, from an acting perspective, I thought it was exceptional because he's acting like he's acting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's pretending he's in a character, and then that character has now put on another like fake face.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston
Right.
did an amazing job as far as feeling as awkward as possible and being
Right.
completely out of his norm.
Right.
Like, well, yeah, like bravo to that for sure.
Yeah. When Walt and Elliot are talking and they're having a good time together, and Elliot says, "Man, I wish we could do this more. This would be great." And then he
Mhm.
says, what if you came back? It'd be great to have an outside opinion, blah, 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 blah. And Walt is kind of taken aback,
Yeah.
like, wow, that's really flattering. And I'm wondering too, like, wait a minute, why it looks like they live in the same town,
Yep.
right? Like they didn't like fly overnight
Yep.
somewhere.
Yep. Exactly.
So why is this just coming up now? How long? It seems like it's been a really long time since they've connected,
Right.
right?
Like
So
even later on, Walt says like we don't even hang out with these people anymore.
right,
So
right, right.
they obviously probably only come for birthdays at this point.
Yeah, but I think we're kind of understanding Walt's surprise when he says, what if you were to come back? Walt's very
Right.
taken aback by it, and we are too. And we're sort of thinking that, yeah, like why wouldn't he do that? He's obviously a really great guy and smart chemist and all this. But then Walt starts to put it together. Wait a minute, like
Yep.
it scans over to Skylar, and he looks at her talking to Gretchen, I think, and he seems to know. Wait a minute, he's
Right.
asking me to come back to get on health insurance because he starts to say, well, there's some things you need, you don't know. And Elliot pretends to be like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but whatever it is, it'll be fine, and
Yeah. We have great health insurance, by the way.
yeah,
So
right. If it just so happens to be something to do with health, and I think that's when he
that
figures
was
it out,
when
right?
that's when he kind of like, stops for a second and was like, aha. And then,
Yeah.
after that scene, you see them exit Skylar and Walt exiting the house.
Interesting that we don't get to see the end of that conversation, but what do you think,
Yep.
Cabes? What do you think the end of that conversation looked like?
Between Walt and Elliot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he probably played it off like, you know, yeah, no, that's great. Well, let me think about it. And he probably ended it right then. And then talked more about the patent that he, was able to secure. Like good for you. But yeah, I mean that you know that conversation, you see a little glimpse of Walt being like, wow, thank you. Like he was really humbled at
Mm,
that the beginning of the conversation, and right when he picked up that this was not genuine, it was
mhm.
only for the fact of charity, that his pride just jumped to the forefront and
Yeah.
was the main focus of that conversation. And so I
Yeah.
gotta assume that he just kind of ended it as quickly as possible.
Okay, so you said the P word,
Yep.
pride. And I think that's the theme of this episode
Yep. Big time.
because it's the pride that he has that won't let him take the money from Elliot.
Hmm.
And then skipping ahead to the intervention, it's the pride of, no, I'm not going to be degraded and try and save my life with this treatment that might make my life kind of embarrassing and have to depend on other people. Go ahead, comment on that.
I was gonna say that intervention was pretty telling, right? So if it starts
Yeah.
off with Skylar just kind of talking about like this is the reason why I brought everyone here, yada yada yada, and then and then it goes to Hank, who's
Hank.
literally just who's
Oh man.
stuffing himself, right? Like they have this whole
With
platter, and
cheese.
he's just stuffing himself, and he's doing that whole total like dad, like, hey, you want some, you want some, like no one wants some, okay, I'll just eat it,
Right,
and I
right, right,
love
right,
I
right.
love his rationalizations of everything, because he's talking about, like, you're you're up to bat, it's the bottom of the ninth, and like, you got a bum arm, you got to put someone else in there, like, I get it, Walt, like, your pride is there, but like, hey, if you got
Yeah.
someone to do it, might as well do it. One of my favorite thing was Walt Jr., because to me he was the most real of all four of them there talking to him, because he's just sitting there. He's like, Dad, like, this is an obvious answer. Like, why are you being a
Mhm. Yeah.
and then kind of goes into like, just do it.
Yeah, that one, so that bothered me a lot because I wanted to know. I don't know the answer to this question. Is Walt genuinely afraid of the treatment? Or,
Right.
like, what's his main concern? Is his concern, "Oh, I'm afraid of the treatment," or is his concern, "No, no, no, I don't care about that. I care about setting my family up financially."
Well, I
And
think
that
it starts first with how he expressed what he was scared of, because I feel like when Walt Jr. says, "Why are you being doing this?" The camera goes to Walter, and you could see him starting to tear up a little bit. Like, I think he was generally like taken back by that, and then it was followed up by another really great like emotional response from Marie, who was also wearing purple, if anyone hadn't noticed. um
Hmm.
why would you want to be prodded 100 times by doctors when you only have a couple of weeks, months left, and so that was also important to him too. And so when he finally got the talking pillow and he laid out all these
The
things,
talking
like
pillow.
all yeah, I love the whole talking pillow. He he laid out all these things that were really important to him, but he presented them in a way that were bad for the people that he loved, right? Like, these were all burdens, but
Right,
he presented them like like, I'm keeping this away from you, right?
right.
And but really, when in this, kind of skip ahead, when he wakes up the next day, I think he has a realization that, like, although these are burdens, he's seeing that everyone wants to be here, they want to do this for him, and he realizes that those choices that he is making to not do the treatment is completely selfish on his part, because
Mm,
he has taken away a father from his unborn child. He has taken away the father from Walt Jr. He's taken away a husband from his wife. Like, he's it's
tell
a
me,
lot to unpack.
okay, that he makes that decision presumably in bed when he wakes up in the morning, right? So A,
Yep.
he slept on it, but B, he looks over at that stack of books, and what does he grab? A candle or something? What is it he smells?
It was some kind. Yeah, I was trying to like. I
Was it
paused it at
important,
one
whatever it
point.
was?
I paused it honestly when I was watching it today, and I was like, "What is that?" I couldn't tell really what it was. I was
Okay,
just trying to focus on the books.
so it doesn't seem to be that important, but he takes it out. It looked to me, it looked like a candle. Like, he takes it down, he
Yeah.
smells it. So what is it that leads him to change his mind?
If you were to ask me, it was a situation where he just saw 6 books on Skylar's side, where it was half of. I don't know if you looked at the titles, but half of
Baby
them
stuff
half
and
of them looked like, how can I help my spouse, and the other half was, how can I survive without my spouse, like, how do I do
mm,
this with raise a family on my own, type of scenario. And I don't know per se like what each title was, but just reading them really quick, it looked like he was like, man, I can't leave them like this, and I still think in his mind, I'm gone. I only have a short period of time to live, regardless if this treatment works or not. Like, if it
mhm,
works,
yeah.
great. I'm still gonna die pretty soon because it'll probably come back. But if it doesn't, whatever, right? Like, that, I think that was the biggest thing. And like, and you see it also, like, when he actually goes to the doctor's office and Walt Jr. is there and he smiles at him and he gets a smile back. Like, I think that he kind of came to terms with, if I do this, everyone I care about is happier, and it
Okay,
kind of
but
makes it better.
there's a problem though, Caleb, that we gotta address, which is the question isn't necessarily, do I do treatment or do I not do treatment? The question is really, how am I gonna pay for it?
Yep.
Because maybe you could say it's two questions, but the point is he has to answer both of those in that moment, because what I don't see at any point, whether when he's in bed or when he's hugging Skylar, does he say, I'm going to do it. So no, he didn't say, okay, I'm deciding I'm going to do treatment. Now I've got to decide, am I going to ask Elliot or am I going to sell meth? So in other words, I think he can only answer both of them at the same time. So the question is not simply treatment or no treatment. The question is no treatment or treatment and meth.
Yeah.
And so he's having to decide. So it's two things he's having to carry at this moment. It's very, very, very heavy. It's not just, do I go through the chemo? I personally don't think that the going through the chemo is what he's scared about, which is why I think it was important for him to hear the response from Walt Jr., right? That it meant that much for him, because this goes back to Walt's his desire to try to be rational and calculate everything and put things on a ledger left and right and pros and cons. And it's easy to quantify treatment costs this many dollars, right? But you can't quantify what is a father to his son.
Right.
And so I think you're right that he realizes, I don't know how to approach that. I don't know how much it's worth to Walter Jr. But what I'm getting is that it's a whole freaking bunch. So now the question is simply, okay, because his pride is so prevalent and strong, am I going to humble myself and ask Elliot, or am I going to go back to Jesse and cook another batch of meth? Now remember how easy it was for him to make that $4,000. I mean, easy. It wasn't easy.
Yeah,
but if you take out all of the things that you could attribute to just bad luck, cooking the meth was not really that hard for him, right? He was able to do it pretty easily, and it would be pretty easy for him to assume, oh well, now I know how to do this. We're not going to go to Crazy 8. Clearly, we're just going to cook the meth, and we're gonna
this will never happen again.
What are the odds of that happening, right? We're just going to cook the meth, and that's what I'm going to do. And so that'll be pretty easy. So the question comes back to pride, right? Do I humble myself and take money from Elliot? And we don't know at this point, we don't know why is that such a humiliating or humbling rather thing for him? We know that Gretchen is involved. And when she calls tearfully and asks him, and I love that moment, she doesn't call him. When does she call him? She called him when he's outside Jesse's house. The choice couldn't be any clearer. Do you get out of the car and walk to Jesse's house and cook meth? Or do you accept Gretchen's offer and take Elliot's money, which she says is rightfully his?
Right. Yeah. Literally half of this is rightfully yours in a way, and she even says, does this have to do about us?
And we don't get an answer for that, right?
No, he just kind of, man, it's so sad, because you're right. That was a pivotal scene, because he was right at a crossroads, and he literally could just say, you know what? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Give it to me. And then the show's over,
And to go back to the intervention scene, what he says when he gets the talking pillow. Oh, and by the way, I think it's important to note this. If we're trying to understand the characters, Skylar is super strict on whoever has the pillow gets to talk and nobody else gets to talk.
Yeah, she is.
Except when Walt gets the pillow, then she still gets to talk. Did you notice that?
Right. She responds to every statement he makes.
Yeah, right. So that tells us a little bit something about her. But he says, what I want, what I need. What does he say? What does he say he wants? What does he say he needs?
A choice.
He wants the freedom to be the one to make the choice.
Yeah. And I thought that was really pivotal.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, because we go back to episode 1, where we look at a person that doesn't look like they've had a choice in any kind of situation ever. And he kind
Yeah.
of says that. He goes, I've never had a choice in
Yeah.
anything I've done. And if I'm going to have a choice in anything, I want a choice in this, you know? And
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty telling.
Yeah. So there's a a book that I've mentioned in the past, I think a past episode, by Fyodor Dostoevsky, called Notes from Underground. And it's I think about it a lot when I think about human nature, because it's about this character who's this middle level bureaucrat who works for the state in Russia, and he's just a very bitter, resentful person, and he constantly does things that are not in his interest, but they're like an expression of his own will and ability to make a choice. And so, for example, I can't imagine this is not far from the writer's mind when he's writing the story, because it starts with him saying something like, I have a diseased spleen or something like that, and the doctor told me I have to take this medicine, and you know what, damn it, I'm not going to take the medicine. And you're like, dude, like, you should take the medicine. He's like, no, I'm not going to. I can, if I want to, I don't have to, and I'm not going to, right? And Cabes, you should know something about this, right? Your very first word, if we recall, right, is don't.
Don't.
Right?
That's right.
You were the expression of will, even as a young
Just
child.
don't tell me what to do. Like,
Just
that's
don't
all
tell
you
me what
gotta
to do. And Cabes, what do you want to do if I say go left?
Right. I'm going right.
Yeah. What if you know it's not a good idea to go right?
I wanted to go left until you told me to go left.
There you go. Right. Right.
That's how it is.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe in a way, Walt has felt that way, right? But now that he's quote unquote awake, we know he's awake now. Now he's able to kind of make choices.
Yep.
And he wants the freedom to do that. And so in a way, he can't say yes to the treatment until he's gotten everyone to accept that he said no. Now he can change his mind. If he had just said yes, he would not have known himself. Did I really make that choice, or was I just following along with what everybody said?
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, let's go to unless you have anything else to add on the intervention or the Elliot Gretchen. So let's talk for a second about Jesse and Badger. So they're out there in the desert and they're cooking again. But what the heck's gotten into Jesse? All of a sudden, he's just like super particular about the quality of the meth.
Yeah. So this part I really liked, because if like you saw the first time that Walt and Jesse were cooking, and Walt is very particular. He's doing all the by the book type of thing. And then Jesse's just kind of goofing around. He's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, whatever.
He's got the video camera.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, come on, let's do this. And then you pan forward to the 5th episode we're on now, and Badger is Jesse.
Yeah.
And Jesse turns into and Jesse turns into Walt. And if you notice, Jesse actually listened, and to use Walt's words on Jesse's paper that we saw in the last episode, he actually applied himself. He actually was like, no, this is this kind of
he knows all the names of the beakers and the
he
flasks.
knows all the beakers and the flasks and all that kind of stuff, and he's just like, Badger, calm down, like this is what it is.
He's wearing an apron.
That's right. Yeah, he is.
Like he's even taken on the protective gear.
Yeah, like he's doing, I mean, not 100%, right? Like he's really trying to be Walt, and I love how they did this, because they didn't like 100% portray him as Walt at this point, because like he's still obviously very amateur. He's just at this point, he's just looking at what he remembered the first cook was like, and I think as it went on, I could only imagine that Walter was just like, all right, Jesse, now we do this, and now we do that, and now we do this, and
but what's crazy, it's crazy to me how high of a standard he has for himself when he throws out all that crystal.
3 batches.
Right. Which, of course, like, where did he get all that? Where did he get the material for all that? Badger. He could have said, you know what, Badger, like, this is subpar. I'm not going to sell it under my name, but you can smoke this if you want, or you can do something else with it. But I'm not going to accept it. It's not, it can't go under my name. Right. But he doesn't even do that. He throws it out. And
So
then
I
does he
think
do it?
a lot of that was because of he was doing he Jesse was making meth with his chili powder or whatever, and it was
Chili
so
P, man. That's my
yeah,
signature.
exactly. It was so subpar, and then he was
Yeah.
able to make this new like glass grade is what he called it. Like I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
they ever had that before, and it probably was able to sell so much more. Like they got 8 grand total from it. Like I don't know what the other amount was, but like if he knows that this kind of work can create this kind of ROI, return on investment, then he wants that. And if he made it with Walt, he wants to know that he can do the exact same thing. And so when he
So
sees it's cloudy, it's like it was just a kick in the nuts for him.
yeah. So let me disagree with you a little bit. I think.
Okay.
I don't think he's thinking ROI. I don't think he's thinking dollar bills. I think it's pride. I think it's he
Okay.
wants to know that he can make just as high a quality meth as Walt. Now that he's seen it, he's filled,
Yep.
and maybe it's because he knows he wants to go back and sell it to the same guy, right? Who came in, who the big guy who said he's got rich friends in town that he sold it to originally, right? And he doesn't. He knows if he goes back and sells a subpar thing, they're going to be like, "Yo, this isn't the same thing. You obviously didn't make the first batch. If this is the best you can do."
Yep.
So there's some return on investment, but I think that the thing we're trying to the thing that is really important to Jesse is not the dollar bills so much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's the hurt pride because
Yep.
he still could have sold the lesser quality stuff for something, right, to a
Yep.
different market maybe, and maybe just said, "Hey Badger, take this for your trouble," right? Instead he throws it out and refuses to let Badger have any. And I think we only see them do 2 batches, but Badger says, "No way, man! Like you've already done this 3 times or something like that,"
Yeah,
right?
it was 3 pounds of pseudo. So yeah, it was implying that they had done a second one, thrown it out, and now they're on the third one. So correct.
Right. So that to me is kind of insane. Like we're seeing something beyond rational calculation, right? He Jesse is in pursuit of something that's beyond his material interest right now. Now he's trying to soothe his soul in some kind of way, right? By getting a quality of meth that will give him not just dollar bills but honor.
You know
And
what? To kind of agree with you now, to go on that as well. Remember, he was going into the newspaper and trying to interview for positions, and he was getting knocked down left and right. Now we only saw one, but he when you got
right,
to the when you got back to the car, you saw several circled, you know, things on the newspaper where he, probably had already visited, and they said, no, we need this, this, and
oh
this, and
right,
this
right.
X amount
He's
of,
like he
experience and yada, yada, yada. So this is the one thing that he really thought
mm,
that he's like, hey, if I'm going to do anything good, this is what I can do good at. And
yeah,
so I think to your point, he really wanted to excel at,
yeah,
because what
right.
what else is he going to do? So
Yeah.
yeah, with saying that now, that makes more sense.
So and it's unfortunate. I mean, it's kind of funny the way it breaks down, but Badger is pissed because again, we don't know how long it took Badger to collect all that pseudo, but
Right. And
when he's
he's
like,
doing the
"Don't
same
throw it
thing that
out."
Jesse did, because he wanted to smoke it. And he was like,
Yep,
no, dude, we got to sell this. The
this is
customers are
for
going
the
to want a
customers.
certain
Right.
grade.
Good point. Good point. It is funny. Why does Jesse have zero concern? Why doesn't Jesse say, "You know what? Most of this is not really good, but it's not bad. We'll keep some of it to smoke ourselves." You're
Right.
right. He's applying himself
Hmm.
uh, in a way. Yeah. But to go back to the idea that pride is the theme in this whole show in a way, but in this episode particularly, there's a kind of pride at work in Jesse that leads him to refuse to accept anything but the glass grade meth.
Right.
And what's that leave him with? A crossbow arrow in the bumper of his RV.
Yeah. I love the fact that like when you see Jesse drive off with the RV, like he was literally just parked on the road. I know it was a dirt road, but they were parked on the road and he just took off straight and they were on the road because you see them drive off as
Far
opposed to
away
the
from the cow houses. Yeah.
right. Yeah, the cow house. The first time when it was Walt and Jesse, they were out in the desert and off of any road. They were literally out in the middle of nowhere. So like just a little bit more, amateurness there. There was another part. It was a small scene, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. The when Walt Jr. and his buddies were trying to buy beer.
Yeah. Oh man, that was tough to watch.
Right? If I'm a
Tough to
dad, I would be furious. No, not furious.
be
I'd be hurt.
disappointed.
I'd be
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
disappointed and hurt if my
Yeah.
son did not call me.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a big moment for Hank. I thought it was a big moment for Hank because Hank is the kind of guy who wants to be the hero,
Right.
right? He could have said, "You're right. It's a good thing he called me because I know these guys and I can save you." And I was able to have, my badge has a lot of weight with these undercover guys, or whatever. I don't, But I forget what he says exactly, but he says that he should have called you dad. You shouldn't
Yeah,
have
but
called me.
did you notice what he said before that?
He says, "Not cool, right?
Yeah,
Not
well,
cool."
he didn't even tell the cop that he was a DEA agent.
Did he not? How do you know?
No, because he was like you're really like glad that your dad is here to come get you, and they just panned to Hank, and he just kind of gave a nod. He didn't,
Well,
he
how do
didn't
we
say
know that?
like, hey, well,
How do
he
we?
didn't say anything like, oh, good thing your uncle is a DA agent or friend of the bureau or anything like that. He literally just said, oh, it's a good thing that your dad's here.
Yeah, I assumed that he thought his dad was a DEA agent,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe we don't know. Maybe Hank didn't say anything, and the guy just said,
Yeah, I guess that's up to the viewer.
"Yeah." But good to know you can interpret it in one of those two ways.
The 13
But
times I've watched this, I have interpreted that he did not
fair enough.
um,
Fair enough.
go from there. But yeah,
Yeah.
go on with what you're saying about how he's like not cool, man.
Well, so it shows the disintegrating trust between Walt Jr. and Walt Sr., right? Where he doesn't reach out to his dad. Now he probably knows that his uncle is got weight, especially in the law enforcement world,
Right.
and can get him out. But he probably also thinks of his dad, I'm going to use this word, as kind of impotent. Like
Mhm.
he's not able really to help me out here. He's just not the kind of guy who knows what.
Right. He doesn't have a lot of street cred. Yeah. No, I could
Right.
I could definitely see that. I mean, especially if I really feared my father and I had a really great relationship with my uncle, and he is a DA agent, I could see like if I was in
Remember,
Walt Jr.'s scenario, I would probably do the same thing.
yeah, and remember back to the first episode, right? When they're at Walt's party, and he's got his 9mm or whatever that he's got, and Walt Jr. is super impressed. He's like, "Dad, like, look at this, like,
Yep.
how about that, and then also Hank, because he's been misled by Skylar,
Mhm.
takes effort to show Walt Jr. like, don't do this, don't do drugs. This is where it leads you. Whatever, he takes him to
Oh
that
yeah. Yeah.
palace or whatever it
That
is. And
the part about him finally finding out that it wasn't Walt Jr. that was into to weed. And it was
yeah,
actually
that was kind of funny.
he's like, I didn't know he had it in him.
Yeah, well, and that's true. He doesn't really, or he didn't before he
Yeah.
was awake, right? But
Yeah.
point is, I think it makes sense why Walt Jr. went to Hank for that.
Yep.
Now we could also add, he might have thought, hey, maybe I can call my uncle. He can get me out of this fix, and maybe he won't tell my dad, and I can get out of this a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
maybe a charitable reading is to say that Walt Jr. is like, look, my dad's going through cancer right now. I don't want to put this on him too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it, but I could see that as a plausible explanation. But I think it was a really big moment, like I said, for Hank, when Hank says, "Not cool, man. You should have called your dad." I think he was resonating with Junior's conscience there.
And even when he got back to their house, he said, "Hey, is Walt here? No, he's not. I don't know where he is at. All right, hey, don't mention it to him. Like I don't want him to know about this.
Right.
And I feel like
right,
if I'm Hank, I'd probably say the same thing. Because I'm like, hey, don't do this. Don't ruin this for Walt, because
yeah,
like I want to know when my son gets caught for doing something like that. Like I want to be the guy that he calls. I want to be that guy. So I get where Hank's coming from on that scene.
But let's remember that going into the future. Let's give Hank some credit here for trying to give
a check mark.
He gets a check. Yep. For trying to help give Walt the opportunity to be the man.
Right.
Okay, so he gets a point for that. Yeah, I think that was a good scene to remember. Okay, anything else in this episode? I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, when it came down to the very end, when Walt just showed up to Jesse's house and he hung up with Gretchen, and he just said, "Want to cook?" I mean, that gave me good. Everyone knows that, but like that part was just
getting the band back together.
The band back together. Let's do this, And it made me think about the last interaction that Walt had with Jesse, where Jesse was just like flung the $4,000 up in the air and went in the pool and was like, "I would never do this with you. Like, why would you think this?" And for him to come back and do that after Jesse had just failed in his own eyes at trying to do this, like it's setting up for a really, really interesting next episode. So for sure.
So what I heard you pointing out was Jesse was humbled when he realized he couldn't make the same glass quality meth.
Right.
And Walt was humbled when he realized that he would have had to rely on Elliot, and he's not going to do that. Right. I mean, he's too proud, but he has to humble himself to go to Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've both had to kind of own up that their pride is leading them to each other and bringing them back together. Right. Jesse needs more mentoring, if you will, from Walt, and Walt needs Jesse to help him avoid going to Elliot for the treatment that he needs in order to be a good father and husband in his mind.
Man, love it.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up on episode 6.